The title that I choose is also the title of a policy brief I published in German 2 months ago. There's a new article on the issue, Party Brawls and Posts, the new neo-Nazi youth scene in Germany. So now in the full mode, excellent. Those of you who don't know CEP's work, we do a lot of things. We look at Islamist extremism, partially on left-wing extremism. Also, we have a strong focus on right-wing extremism and terrorism. Over the last 5 years, we had several big projects. We had a series of policy briefs and articles on the issue, which span on transnational connectivity, financing, comparing different countries, looking into linkages between extreme right-wing and organized crime. We have a workflow on the Active Club network, which I will briefly touch. And we, of course, have a strong workflow on the role of anti-Semitism in the mobilization to violence. So if you are interested, please check our website to find all of these reports and much more. Now, the reason why we're doing this webinar is that in the last year, particularly in the last year in Germany, 3 things happened at the same time. There's a old school German extreme right party, the NPD, that calls itself Die Heimat now, the homeland. They have a youth group, and they have established a new strategy, which I would call the revolt strategy. I'm going to talk about that. We have decentralized groups that do not seem to be steered and guided by parties or other groups, but have involvement of older individuals. Here, this is about teenagers, activism, and so on. They've been labeled TikTok divisions, which is part of a mislabeling because it gives the impression that this is an online phenomenon, but we will discuss this. And of course, also last year, in the spring, the Active Club network in Germany was initiated. I'm going to only briefly talk about active clubs because we have papers, articles, webinars that you can all look up if you want to learn about that phenomenon more. Now, let's start with an event that kind of brought the attention of the media and a big part of everyone who cares about preventing or fighting extremism in Germany. This was in Bautzen. It's a city in eastern Germany in August last year. So this is Christopher Street Day demonstration in Bautzen. And this is about the counter-protest tour. In different groups that are keeping their distance. It's a song by Tic-Tac-Toe. Ich finde dich scheiße, I think you're shit. Which might be time for the counter demonstration. The banner reads white, normal, and hetero. Just gives an overview how close both demonstrations also were. Here people are yelling Nazi kids, Nazi hood, neighborhood, claiming a term that originally was developed by anti-fascists, I assume. So this is one way that the phenomenon is being shown. You've seen young people, mostly men in black, some of them very organized, coordinated. You had instigators at the beginning in front of the big block. I didn't show you the whole video. There were also some problems with the coordination, but this is, I guess, this coordinated group, the estimated 700 to 800 young people around here was what really brought the focus. Most Christopher Street Days or similar events, the counter protests look like this protest, though. Here you also see more younger faces. Wir sind das Volk means we are the people. This is a claiming of a slogan that was used by the opposition in the GDR in Eastern Germany. So most of these counter protests have around 50 to 70 participants. It's also no longer possible to get this close in most cases to the Christopher Street Day events or other kinds of events these folks are demonstrating against. So this was just to visualize and show what is happening in Germany. And of specific interest was, of course, the youth aspect. Youth meaning an age group from maybe 14 to mid-20s. These three developments that I mentioned, the revolt strategy by the old school party, the Heimat, the TikTok divisions, which are very visible and present online, but also very strong offline, and the Active Club network, they share four key points. In differentiation, though. Not all are the same. I'm trying to establish a pattern here. Neo-Nazism, so there's Nazi symbols and codes, sometimes covert, without political training or cadre building. These are all action-oriented groups. Fear-based messaging, an emphasis on existential threats, some version of the Great Replacement, white genocide, and implicitly then Jewish world conspiracy theories. You have the hero narrative, promises of personal status upgrade as a defender of the white race, promises of community and security, and you have violence as a solution. Nobody would claim themselves as attackers, so it's all about self-defense, right? We are defending because there's no political solution. Now, in terms of ideology, like I mentioned, there's basically no writings published by these groups that would fill into or would allow an analysis. These are some of the postings. Love 1161 is anti-Antifa, which is right-wing extremism. Hate Antifa, love natures, hate Linke, love Germany, hate Ukraine. We have partly counterculture, meaning they see themselves countering the mainstream center-left culture of the last couple of years in Germany. In some parts of Germany, it's a strong subculture. In some parts, even the mainstream culture to be some sort of center-right, right-wing, or extreme right. You have in the last decades, of course, friends and family with extreme right leanings that have voted for extreme right parties before the AfD and since the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. We have, of course, social media making a lot of these phenomena very visible. We had hundreds, maybe even more marches during COVID-19. Some of them are still ongoing. On Mondays, the Monday marches against government, what they would call overreach. We have adolescents, people organizing around their peer group. People are protesting against their parents. Sometimes people are challenging authorities, looking for a real community. The hero narrative I brought up seems to be very important in general, of course, in extremism recruiting. And there's an aspect of safety and security in the context of immigration and young immigrants that is being repeatedly brought up. Anti-Semitism in Germany is potentially illegal. So extreme right-wingers, like many others, mostly use anti-Zionism as a tool to avoid legal consequences, in a way try to be politically correct. We have this all well established and well analyzed. The white genocide, Great Replacement, being steered by a Jewish cabal, by a Jewish elite, right? So that's the difference between demographic change, which is happening in societies that don't reproduce by themselves, plus a massive inflow of newcomers, of immigrants. So there is change. The Great Replacement's essence and the white genocide narrative is that this is orchestrated by an elite, and in most cases, this is considered to be a Jewish elite. Now, ideology gets a bit more complicated. This is a house that is being operated by Die Heimat again. You see the Palestinian flag and the Iranian flag with the slogan, "Peace be with you." So this is from a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So you're seeing the right-wingers again try to address Israel and the Jews by siding with real or perceived enemies of the Jews and Israel. We have affiliations to Russia. The guys that you're seeing here are part of these so-called TikTok divisions, Deutsche Jugend voran in particular. You see style plays a huge role, especially online. The showing of combat boots, of the pants, the bomber jackets. Of course, there's also New Balance shoes or here Nike shoes and so on. Constant reposting, posting. I got this. This looks great on you. What do you guys think? So there's like a community building about symbols and the signaling aspect. In the boots of their fathers is an aspect that I think is underlooked and underreported. In the analysis, there are a couple of very clear cases here. Father and son posing. This is an account that posts short videos that shows foreign-looking men in public spaces that pose a potential threat and then indicate that there is a solution that looks like this to that perceived problem. This account is actually Polish-German, which of course is of interest to us, has quite a lot of followers and is being perceived actively here. But we also have like a German account here, having a beer with my father, greetings to the comrades, with the 3 hearts in these 3 colors being a symbol for the German Empire flag, which is the flag used by right-wing extremists in Germany. And the account is Ostdeutsches Mädel, right? Be proud and loyal, fight and fear nothing. So this is, again, another aspect. There's also left-wingers, we've seen this in investigative reporting, like social workers, for example, that report that their kids have turned to right-wing extremism. And of course, they're very frustrated and scared because of this. We can talk about these personal, family, social, peer group dynamics here, and I think we should. We have a stronger female presence. I don't know if you've seen in the second video I showed you, the shorter one with the younger people, even younger. I would say there were 30% maybe of women and also many young women. So this is about Ich will dich kennenlernen. I want to get to know you. This is again a more mainstream. So you have the German flag, not the Reichsflag, but it is in this context where this picture is being shared. But you also have right-wing women in leading positions. Here, Stella, she is leading the Chemnitz Revolte, which is associated with the phenomenon I talked earlier. She kind of took over this role from a male member of the group. She is helping out her colleagues, her comrades in Berlin when they have problems organizing a march. So there is an empowerment, more of a leadership role in this phenomenon than usual. In the classic established extreme right parties and groups, women are usually not in leadership positions. There's criticism of this movement. They do not represent the right wing. This is a pro-AfD, Alternative für Deutschland account. It's not an official account. People are saying this is the old right, right? So these are the for decades existing right-wing extremist structures, some with clear linkages to National Socialism. They're really upset about these young groups, these new people that show up drunk, smoke, they can't write proper German. So you have a series of podcasts and other publications that says this is asocial, antisocial. It's a shame. You should fuck off or you should get your stuff together. The person here with the face tattoos is in a way the face of that movement. He has since then bettered himself. He is now member or participating at Kampf der Nibelungen, which is the most prominent German and maybe European extreme right combat sports network. So there has already been some adjustments. Other parts, especially the new right, of the, has also been around for a long time, but is trying not to reference National Socialism, is trying to learn from the radical left, from the left, from Gramsci, trying to take over the government with meta politics. They see this also positively. As a diversion. So the fact that everyone in Germany right now is looking at teenagers gives the organized extreme right more leniency, more room to do what they're doing. This is their argument. There's also energy that people love, activism, and they hope that some will join their ranks. So the guy on the left is Sellner, Martin Sellner, who himself posted or produced posters with swastikas and put these in front of synagogues when he was 17. And he is very sympathetic with that kind of activism, hoping that this will translate in a form of long-term involvement and dropping the brawl and party part of it. And on the right, the active clubs, Patrick Schröder, that's not Patrick Schröder, that's an AI-generated image. This is how this group wants to look like. They're not looking like this. Patrick Schröder, who's behind this, is also trying to reach out to these unorganized groups and tries to pull them into the active clubs who are more organized. Now, there are different dimensions here that are of interest. There's some complexity, absurdity, adaptability. Some of you might have known or heard the name Ferhan Zenturk. This is a young man of Turkish origin who has organized some of the largest extreme right youth demonstrations in Germany in the last 12, 18 months. With the title, We're Taking Back Our Country, or Against Left-Wing Extremism. So he was accepted as a Turkish, or I don't know if he's Turkish looking, but he doesn't look like the people that march behind him. And he has a Turkish name. He was briefly at the AfD. He left the AfD. Now he is against he's now against right-wing extremism. So it's obviously a troubled character. But it was curious that people, several hundred, were showing up at some points to his organized demonstrations by him. Now, we also have, and this is not necessarily directly connected to neo-Nazi youth movements, Alice Weidel, but there's an overlap with a pro-Alternative für Deutschland visibility on social media. Alice Weidel, as some of you know, is openly living in a lesbian civic partnership with this person from Sri Lanka. They have adopted 2 boys and they both live in Switzerland. So the leader of the radical/extreme right party in Germany that has 20% of the vote at the moment, in some polls even more, is actually living in Switzerland, a very different lifestyle that the party is calling for. So that complexity here is interesting. In general, there's a discussion in the extreme right in Germany if they need to move to some sort of a diversity resistance, looking more for values and not just at skin color. Right, so for example, the Grey Wolves, the right-wing extremist movement from Turkey, is very strong in Germany. Some reports say it's actually the strongest in numbers extreme right group in Germany are the Grey Wolves. So how can we overlap? Because if we are anti-LGBTQ+, if we are anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist, anti-anti, is it smart not to go together? Or is it smarter to go together? This is a discussion. It's not a majority position, but it is happening. And there is a discussion currently getting speed again. Shouldn't we work closer with our Polish comrades, German right-wingers who go to the Independence March in Poland, in Warsaw, once a year, are always very impressed with the organization, with the scale, what is possible in Poland. So there seems to be some admiration moving from hating Polish people because in their perspective are occupying German territory to admiring the leniency and the capacity of some of the extreme right in Poland. So in summary, the German extreme right milieus have been changing. They needed to. because there's a long list of ban orders, government ordered ban association ban orders that forced the key players in the respective milieus to adjust. This has led to either dressing up as a political party, which is very hard to ban in Germany, or to follow a version of leaderless resistance, meaning organization without organizations. So there should be no formal structure. There's no like, someone responsible for the financing, someone taking notes. There's no internal elections. So the idea is that the government has a harder time to ban these groups. Parties to the right of the AfD are struggling in Germany as well, and this is one of the reasons for innovation as always. So is this a new wave? What is new about it? It is action-oriented, youth-friendly. It is very much offline, but it is very visible online. It is, in my understanding, a Kameradschaft 2.0, reanimation more than innovation, this specific phenomenon I was talking about. Ideology, we talked about mobilization. So if you are in a small town somewhere in Germany and there's no visible presence of what you consider opponents, then it's harder to mobilize. The number of Christopher Street Day demonstrations has tripled in the last 3 to 5 years, from around 100 to up to 300 in Germany, which allows right-wing youth to mobilize against that. And in most cases, as I mentioned, the numbers of opponents that show up at the demonstrations are between around 50, I would say, sometimes up to 100. In most cases also peaceful, but there has been violence, violent attacks against political opponents. Some was planned, some seemed spontaneous, sometimes there was alcohol, sometimes not. The prosecution is very active here. I think also because some of these are teenagers or young adults. People have been sentenced within 12 months after they were prosecuted. So this is definitely something that is being seen as a priority. The criticism from the extreme right, I think, is interesting. And I want to emphasize again, we should not confuse enhanced visibility of right-wing content online with the actual presence and capacity of offline individuals that are behind the online propaganda, but what actually is happening offline needs to be a priority, and I see a lot of priority in counting likes and clicks. So Germany seems to be, in my understanding, very well prepared to address this challenge. We have a very broad and deep prevention space in Germany, NGOs, government agencies, youth authorities, social authorities. Of course, this is not perfect, but we're better equipped than ever. And I don't know if anyone is better equipped than Germany in this regard. We should avoid crackdowns, especially against teenagers. So we need to avoid sensationalist reporting. The groups grow in standing the more reporting there is. They're celebrating this. They're saying, yes, please report about us. Take our material, make a long documentary. And has been dozens now of documentaries about these groups, which are a relevant phenomenon, but they appear like giants, and they are surely not. So recommendations more clearly: scalpels instead of sledgehammers. We need to prioritize violent offenders. There are people that have a history of violence, then join these groups, then commit violent crimes. These are, of course, a priority. We need to look at recruiters, organizers, financiers in terms of investigation and prosecution. And of course, the linkages between established professional violent actors like some extreme right hooligan groups and right-wing extremist combat sports groups should be a priority, because this can then also increase the threat picture if the people conducting the violence are getting better at conducting violence. Thank you for your interest. There's lots of publications. Reach out to us or check on our website.